On today's show, what does Mark Williams have to do to earn an extension from the Phoenix Suns? More trust Matt Ishbia talk. Do we trust the guy? And as well as where does Devin Booker rank amongst the best in the NBA? Because people are talking about something that is incredibly stupid in 2K ratings, and it seems like Booker has been disrespected once again. We'll talk about that and much more on this edition of Locked On Phoenix Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up? Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. My name is Benjamin Garcia, host of the Ben Garcia Show mornings on YouTube and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this beautiful Friday or Thursday night, depending when you're watching. Don't forget Locked On Suns is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button to do what thousands, dare I say millions of fans have already done. Become an everyday or get locked on the Phoenix Suns here each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Joining me today, host of Southwest Bias, the GM, and one of the godfathers of talking Phoenix Suns. What's up, Greg Esposito? You know him as Espo. What's up, man? How are you doing?
I know when you say godfather, it's just code word for old. I get it that I'm old in this now. Like I'm pretty sure I am the oldest Suns podcaster now, RIP Dave King. Thanks for just calling me old on the program.
How does that feel? How does that feel to go from like where I'm at now, young, gritty, working the multiple jobs, doing everything you can to survive in this space, to now you can pretty much do whatever you want now. Like you are solidified in this space.
I'm old, gritty, and work a bunch of different jobs. Like they just all happen to be under the same roof at this point. Like it doesn't change. Ben, this business does not change in any way, shape, or form. It remains the same. You have to bust your ass off, regardless of what point you get to, at least on this side of the fence. So.
Okay, well, remind me not to tell my wife that because I keep reassuring her there's an end in sight. But with that being said, let's get things off and rolling. So the other day, I did a show on the top 5 things that have to happen for the Suns to make the playoffs this year. It feels like people are really fixated on this team still contending, and maybe they're having a hard time getting out of that bubble. One thing I didn't put on that list, it just didn't make the cut, and it got a lot of mentions in the comment section, was Mark Williams. How could you leave Mark Williams off the list? He has to be this, he has to be that. And really quickly, my point is like, I like the Mark Williams deal. I would have done it again. I appreciate the Suns adding front court depth and being a team that is bigger, stronger, and way better defensively. Not just Mark Williams, but the team as a whole. Whereas last year, they were literally the complete opposite. They were small, brittle, injury-prone, and could not defend. Mark Williams, if I'm not mistaken, is actually now eligible for an extension. He's not going to get it right now. Let's just leave it like this. Because I do want to hit on him, and I think he's a big thing that has to work out this year. What does Mark Williams have to do to prove he's a starting caliber level center for this Suns team for years to come?
Be healthier for more than 43 games. I mean, availability is probably the biggest thing for this kid. At 23, he's playing like 43 games a season. You can't do that. I don't care what your stat line is in those, 40 plus games that you're playing. You have to be out there. And that's the key to me. If he plays 70, 75 games and he's putting up the kind of stats that he did in Charlotte, then yeah, you give him a contract extension and then you decide, okay, how does it work with Kaman Malawach? Is he a trade, is Williams a trade candidate at some point? Like you figure that out. But the part of the reason you traded for him was you're taking a lottery ticket here, right? It's cheap contract this year. If he's injury prone and doesn't live up to it, you let him walk, right? But if he does live up to it, then you've got the rights to the guy and you can make a move. And I think that's what it is. It comes down to if he is healthy, they will find a way to extend him and either use him as a future trade chip or try to figure out if Kaman Malawach can play power forward, that kind of thing. So he's just got to play. It's that simple for me.
He's 100%. He has to play more games. Another part of his game that, yes, if I'm not mistaken, he's a 15-10 guy. Yeah, right here in my notes, 15-10, 60% from the field. He obviously doesn't shoot threes, 80% from the free throw line. He's not someone you can just hack. He will make his free throws. One thing that I think for him as well is it's hard to judge because he's never been asked to care that much on the defensive side of the ball because Charlotte has never played literally in their history of ever at something, maybe since the Al Jefferson days, meaningful basketball. But from the small sample size that we do have, he's got a little bit in terms of like sandbags for feet where he doesn't move super well laterally. And maybe that's just Charlotte in its own, and that is a whole thing. He's got to be better defensively, but as well as play games. If he's going to be a 15-10 guy here, year in and year out, depending on what the price tag is, I mean, you have to keep the guy around. Really quickly, though, as I don't think we've talked about this, what was your reaction to not only bringing in Kaman Malawach, but sending a pair of first-round picks, the 29th overall pick this year, and I believe the Cavs first-round pick next year for Mark Williams? Is that something where you're like, this guy fits the culture, or was it really head-scratching because of the injuries? And we've already been down that path before.
Wasn't head-scratching. He's 23. He works hard. He's got a large skill level. It was at a position that you were extremely weak in last year, and you could argue not at any point did they have a true starting center on the roster. It's pretty obvious that this front office and this group believes that Oso Ighodaro is more of a point forward than he is an actual center. So you had to make a move to strengthen that. You got Kaman Malawach, but we all know he's 18. He's a project. It's going to take a little bit of time for him to develop. Mark Williams is the guy that makes sense right now. And okay, if it doesn't work out, you gave up, end of the first round picks. That would it be nice to have? Sure. But if you hit on a 23-year-old big man, you're going to be in a good spot. And you gave up significantly less than the Lakers were willing to give up just 2 months earlier for Mark Williams. And I still don't believe that the failed physical was all upright and on board, with the Lakers. I feel like that was a little, maybe this won't work with the other deal we made. Let's just figure out a way to get out of this. So I think you got great value. I have no problem with having multiple centers on this roster, and it takes the pressure off Kaman Malawach, at least in the beginning of the season. He doesn't have to come in and be a starting NBA center, right? That expectation isn't there because you have Mark Williams, which means you can help develop him, and it keeps the options open about what path you want to go with him as you learn how he plays. I mean, could they both play on the floor at the same time? I could see a world where that happens, but it gives more flexibility there. I had zero problems with the trade.
Well, especially because Brendan and I would talk constantly about what the Suns' biggest problems were. And we'd always come back to, no, it's not someone out there. I coined the phrase, the Steve Nash syndrome, where the Suns have always had, it feels like in every generation, their star point guard, whether it was Kidd or Marbury or Johnson or Steve Nash. They've always had that. So now they're not used to having that star point guard not there, but oftentimes that's what fans have pointed to, or people watching this team, they need a point guard. No, this team was old, small, and couldn't defend. Mark Williams checks for sure 2 of those 3 boxes. In the inverse of that, of young, and he's bigger. We need to see how he does defensively. But the Suns have added now to a team that is young, defensive, high motor, and I think they're going to win more games this year than they did last year. I'm not sure they're a playoff team, but because of all those things, they've completely transformed it. This was my top 5 list that I did on Wednesday. That was so controversial because I'm not sure the Suns are a playoff team, and I said, fine, this is what I think needs to happen for them to be. I said Green and Booker need to coexist, meaning that's the obvious thing. That's number 1. Number 2, Ryan Dunn needs to take a leap, and a sizable leap. Ott can coach, meaning he's not getting fired after 1 year. teams fall out. That's obvious. Minnesota's got to get worse. I think the Clippers might be worse. And then one rookie contributes this season. Would you throw Mark Williams' development, play style, whatever, ahead of any of those things?
Yeah, I think it's probably third on the list. If you truly want to be a playoff contender, he needs to be healthy and he needs to be consistent if you want to have a chance at that. Because if he's not, that means you're starting Nick Richards or you're forcing Kaman Malawach into regular minutes. And I think he's bound to be mistake prone in year one. I get it. He was the number 10 pick. Everybody wants to think you just slot the guy in and everything will be great. I think he's a year or two away from being able to play some major minutes in serious situations. So I think Mark Williams being able to stay on the court and playing consistently has to be in my, top three of what they need if they're going to be a playoff team. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. A lot of people misconstrue it because I've been fairly positive about where they are going and the moves that they made. I'm positive because I think it sets up a foundation for a better future. I think they win 37, 38 games this year, better than last year. Not a true playoff, contender in terms of making the playoffs. Maybe you're in that fight for the 10 spot and making it in the play-in tournament, but I think it'll be more entertaining. I think it will be better basketball. I think they're going to try a hell of a lot harder. And those are all things that over the last year and a half, we've begged for. So I think it's going to be a more enjoyable experience. I don't think the results is going to be drastically better, but it'll feel a hell of a lot better than it did.
I had John Voida on the show on Sunday. We call it John Voida Mondays. And we talked about that. We talked about that, what Jordan Ott needs to do in his first season. What is the most important thing? We talked about the same thing, establishing a culture. It's not about getting the playoffs this year. It's about gearing up and being ready 2 years from now, potentially, to finally jump back in that seat and try to be a contender once again. It ain't about getting into the playoffs. So I agree with you, man. I guess it comes off as negative because we're both saying this team, they have to be 13 games better next year to be a playoff team, to be a 6 seed. Like I can't buy that when you take Kevin Durant off the team. It's not negative. It's just where the team needs to go in the future.
Addition by subtraction. I don't agree that it's, not possible because you took Kevin Durant off the team. Yeah. I just think it's not likely.
Well, before Kevin Durant comes in either of our mentions, because we know he's listening, let's move on to Matt Ishbia. And I talked about this on Wednesday as well. We're not just running it back.
Apparently we are. Jeez.
Yeah, well, we are to an extent. You had Matt Ishbia on your show, and you asked him about trust and all those things, and he couldn't show his face to you. But he had him on his show.
That was technology issues. Yeah. All right. I had to tap dance for a good 2 minutes before we could get his audio to work. So yeah, not out of fear of showing his face to me.
Fear.
Technology.
You hear that, Matt? You're scared of Espo. He said it.
Billionaires are just like us. They have technology issues from time to time.
Yeah, the
webcam didn't work.
Yeah, which is wild. The billionaire doesn't have a really nice webcam. Anyways, let's talk about Matt Ishbia. Let's talk about the trust that we have in him, and let's do it next. But first, I gotta tell you about my friends over at Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day, and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it all possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop closer as you get to first pitch. And you've got their incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guaranteed. That takes the worrying out of buying. I've been to like 5 or 6 Diamondback games. I haven't talked a lot of Diamondbacks on my personal show because they haven't given me a reason to up until recently when, it was the Arizona sports media that was making the team, play poorly, I guess. But before that, every time I went to a Diamondback game, I used Game Time. And I would just tell my wife, hey, listen, let's go to the game tonight. I'll wait specifically for prices to drop closer to first pitch, and we'll sit lower level. We'll be able to see the seat. We will be able to see the seats ahead of time. And because of all that, Game Time makes it all possible. It's a very seamless way. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, moving on the show. You know, I spoke to my audience on Wednesday, and I had said, this is why I don't trust Matt Ishbia yet. It doesn't mean it won't come in the future. It doesn't mean he's not on the right path. He has shown signs of, for lack of a better word, rehabilitation when it comes to actually figuring out how to build a championship contender. But you had him on your show. You asked him specifically why the Suns should trust you. He gave a little bit of the corporate answer, but I thought he dropped some, tidbit and nuggets in there about, listen, I'm going to do everything I can to figure it out. Do you trust Matt Ishbia to build a championship winning team? Or are you in the same boat as me as not yet, but I like the direction we're going?
I struggle with the question of trust because I don't think people define it in the appropriate way in this. Trust for me is built on somebody doing exactly what they say they're going to do. It's not necessarily on the result that comes from that, but on looking when they look you in the face and they tell you what they're going to do, and then they follow through with doing exactly that. Matt Ishbia looked us all in the face 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and said, I'm going to invest. I'm going to do everything I can to make the work environment better, the facilities better, the roster have more talent. I'm not afraid to spend to try to win. He did all that he said directly to us. Now, the result was hot trash. And did I like the result? Hell no. And do I think that they made mistakes in the approach that they made? Yes. But what he did was exactly what he told us he was going to do. He was going to spend and try to do the best approach he could to try to win. And I'm of the minority that actually thinks James Jones had a lot more say than people like to act as if he did, and that they went down that path. They said, here's the resources, and the decisions didn't wind up being the right ones. I trust that he's going to do what he says that he's going to try to do. And he said the right things over the last 6 months. He's talked about how he will learn. He's willing to learn, make mistakes, and change fast to try to change it. And what we heard in that interview was him talking about it didn't work. I realize it didn't work the way we went, and I've decided I have to make a hard pivot, and I also have to define from the top what I want this organization to be like and what I want the culture to be like. And everything he said to us, he's tried to do. And he was very upfront and forthcoming originally and continues to be that, hey, he's going to own the team for 50 plus years, and 47 of them, you're probably not going to win a title. Okay. They didn't win a title in the first 2.5 years, but I believe he's going to try to accomplish what he said. Now, will the results wind up in a championship? That's the big question. It's not about trust for me. It's about, will they execute on what he said he's going to do? And I know he's going to follow those steps, but will it lead to the results of a championship?
I got to be honest with you. It's actually it's a pretty solid way of saying it. It's like, do I trust what he's going to do? Sure. So, let me ask you this then, because the thing that irks me the most about Matt Ishbia is he's lied a few times, just blatantly lied. Now the owners lie all the time, coaches lie all the time, but at that last presser, he basically was the end of the season presser. He had said, and we were both there. I believe you were, but it was, I'm not in the room scouting. I'm not in the room making these calls. It's going to be, they're making the decisions. I'm putting the right people in charge. Josh Bartelstein isn't a part of the operation, and people know how I feel about Josh Bartelstein. I mean, I don't think he's the one ruining the whole thing, but I don't think he's fit to be putting together a roster. I've been pretty clear about that. Do you think Ishbia has learned from his mistakes where he wants to be the front and center owner? He wants to be very hands-on. I don't believe him at all when he says that he had, he didn't do he wasn't all front facing, he didn't have his hand in everything, and now he's going to have his hand in everything, and that's why things are going well. Do you think he's learned from his mistakes and that he will learn from them in the future and use those things that he's learned to put together a championship team on the floor?
Well, I don't think that he views being involved in the organization that he paid $4 billion for as a mistake, to be quite frank. I think the difference here is he's more front and center. He's not afraid to get in front of a camera and get in front of a microphone and talk about his views. And I think that makes some people uncomfortable about it. But I can tell you from having been on the inside, Robert Sarver, the disgraced former owner, was a hell of a lot more involved in every aspect of things than most owners, right? But wasn't front and center in front of the camera constantly. He had his hands in every business thing. I mean, so I get why people are gun shy on it, but I think every owner is involved to a certain level. I don't think he's out there scouting tape. I mean, he's not even in the state most of the time. He's running a mortgage business. So there's that. Do I think he was involved a little bit more than he lets on over the last few years? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that he most certainly was. Right. But I still think James Jones had his hands on the wheel and that he can't be absolved of everything. And I think your point, Josh was involved as well in those things. He obviously is still around. I don't know how much he's involved, but there is belief in Bradbury. And if you look at this offseason so far, I mean, he's accomplished things that they set out to do. And now I talked with Mark Cuban at Summer League. That's a guy that was always heavily involved in his team and took a lot of the same backlash at the beginning. And he said, yeah, you got to learn a lot of lessons early on, and that he likes Matt Ishbia and he thinks he's learning those lessons, but it's a much harder NBA than he was in, right? Because obviously the CBA changes. So is he involved? Yeah. Was he involved before? Yeah. To what extent? I don't know. But when you spend $4 billion on something, it doesn't shock me that you want involvement. And this is a guy that is not unfamiliar with basketball. So I understand why he wants involvement. The question is, does it cross a line? Does Brian Gregory have autonomy at times? And is it just simply, hey, this is what we think, and it fits the vision that you laid out. So can we get approval to make this move? I really think the involvement that people are getting hung up on is he saying, this is the kind of team I want. This is the kind of attitude I want. This is the crap that I'm not going to put up with again. I mean, he burned $400 million, like the gross domestic product of a small country, on people that showed no passion, no hustle, did not play the game in a way that you would want to watch it played, right? So I think what is really going on is he's at the top saying, I won't accept this. This is not the kind of thing I'll put up with. This is the kind of team that I want to see. And he's putting it on Brian Gregory and Josh Bartelstein to a lesser extent to go execute on that and figure it out.
I worry, as we move on here, I worry that there's an involvement that makes sense and there's an involvement that just becomes too involved. And I think everywhere in sports that doesn't work. And I think, Knicks owner does that. And he was dealing with the Spear for a long time and James Dolan, but he has done that. It has not worked out for them. And, recently when he was super involved with the Sphere, potentially he had all of his time taken away from the team and then they're good. As well as, in other sports too, man, Dan Snyder involved, no one liked him, or the list goes on and on. Jets are the same way. So
you've listed a very specific kind of person, and owner involvement is only a problem when teams lose. Everybody loved Jerry Jones and his involvement from 89 through the 90s because they won, right? People loved Mark Cuban and his involvement and his courtside seats when they were winning. Like, winning is the differentiator here. Nobody likes Snyder because he's a piece of crap, and they lost football games, right? That's the reality of it. Woody Johnson's the same way with the Jets. Like,
Jets,
the reason that people have turned on on the Cowboys there and Jerry Jones is because they haven't won anything in forever. If Matt Ishbia keeps losing and he's heavily involved, people aren't going to like it. If they wind up winning, starting to win again, building a new culture and being in a championship discussion, nobody's going to say crap about how much he's involved. That's the delineation line. And right now they lost. They looked terrible the last year and a half. And so the finger is going to be pointed directly at Matt Ishbia and will continue to be until they win because of that. But I think he's also made it very clear he's accepting of that, and he doesn't care if you're going to point the finger at him. He's going to do it his way. Now, if they keep losing, nobody's going to like it. If they win, they'll be all right with it.
Let's close out the show talking a little bit about Devin Booker as we're just making the rounds and the real core pieces of the Phoenix Suns right now. Devin Booker, where he ranks in the NBA. Yeah, there's some 2K ratings out that I really don't care about, but it's a good relation and topic what we're doing here at the Locked On Podcast Network. So let's do that next. All right. I didn't even research the 2K ratings that much because I don't care that minimally. However, I did see that he's below Ja Morant and he's below Karl Anthony Towns in ratings. And again, I mean, first off, like if I do give this any time, like that's just stupid. There's not one general manager in the NBA that would take either of those guys, even at Devin Booker's price tag, over Devin Booker. So like there's that. That's why it's like Skip Bayless, right? He says something dumb. I don't even take it seriously. I don't even give it a time my day. Stephen A. Smith. However, the Locked On Podcast Network is doing the top 100 players in the NBA. It's going to come out fairly soon here. I had to rank all 100 players. It's a lot more difficult than you think. I had Devin Booker listed at 14. In the clear all-star, not fringe superstar, I moved him out of that, but all-star can be the best number 2 in the league. In relation to those 2K ratings, where do you think, because I thought you had a good point of you fall to the playoffs, this is what happens. Where do you think Booker ranks right now in the NBA? And what do you think is fair?
I think he's somewhere between where you had him at 14 and where 2K has him at 20. I mean, 2K is based on popularity too. You got to it's 2K ratings and 2K is like a vote for prom king and queen. I mean, it's popularity and it vacillates greatly. Like you'll see guys jump 6 points because they had 2 great months or drop back. Like I don't read much into the number there. And, sure, Ja Morant's ranked higher because he can't have off-court issues in a video game simulation. So, you're just basing it on basketball and athleticism in that case. But look, he's somewhere between 14 and 20. And I think you're splitting hairs if you're freaking out that he's, 17 rather than 14. I mean, I think some people might even be able to make the argument as high as 12. I don't think he's there right now,
Not
but
anymore. Not anymore.
I mean, he had a great numbers wise. He had a great season last year.
Yeah,
top 10 in points per game, top 10 in assists per game. Like counting stats, he looked great. The rest, as a team, they looked horrific, and that's gonna play part of it too, right? Cat got the bump because the Knicks looked great. They had a good playoff run. Like, of course, Karl Anthony Towns is going to get a little bit more love in this. Plus, guess what? They make these ratings so guys debate it online, so they get attention for 2K. And then you know what they do? A handful of weeks in, they slightly adjust it based on how guys are playing to try to make it better fit what reality is. It's all a marketing ploy too. But I think you've got a top 20 guy in the NBA. You're splitting hairs if you're arguing over it. And that's where this, oh, Devin Booker's, he's slipped. He's
He's
had down
overpaid.
years. He's overrated. He's a top 15 to 20 guy in basketball. All right. Is he on that precipice of superstardom like everybody thought after the finals? No. I mean, but if they win and he puts up those numbers, everybody's saying, yeah, 100% he is. So like top 20 guy, that's the kind of guy you want on your roster. And you got a top 15 to 20 guy in Devin Booker. So I think there's a lot of splitting hairs over that. When you're a top 20 guy in the NBA, you are doing very well for yourself.
Yeah, I think Booker's topped out in his ability to be a superstar. And I believe a superstar is anywhere from 6 to 8 players in the NBA where if you have that player, I'm not saying you will win a championship, but you can contend for a title. The Bucks and Giannis, I hate everything around them, but they got Giannis. And I watched him win a title before. They have a shot. And that's kind of where I land on that. I think he's out of that realm. But I mean, people are going to fight me on this, but like I would just take Devin Booker over Jason Tatum. I probably have Tatum ranked the lowest out of every other podcast host in the Locked On Podcast Network. But for me, Booker, it's very simple. He has the caliber to be the best number 2 in the league.
Is your rating based on going into this year or in totality for a career? Because yeah, Jason Tatum wouldn't be in my top 40 because he's got one good knee and isn't going to play basketball this year.
Achilles.
To be fair, or Achilles, excuse me,
which is actually worse. Which is I'm pretty sure worse. So they had us rank all those guys too. Like pretend like they don't have an Achilles, which I couldn't take that out of the realm. It was in totality. My list looked a lot different. I'm sure Donovan Mitchell's going to be in the top 8, which is just like that is nauseating, man. That is so one season. My buddy Danny Cunningham, who I love the dude. He covers Locked On Cavs. We got a good relationship. We talk all the time. He was able, give me this tidbits on Jordan Ott. And I asked him the other day, I was like, Mitchell or Booker? And he flat out was like, Donovan Mitchell for sure. I'm like, what are we doing here? The guy can't crack out of the second round. Like Booker's been in the finals, had back-to-back games in the finals. Like it's come to the point where last year I thought everyone was overrating Devin Booker a little bit, meaning best shooting guard in the league. I mean, like, I don't even care about that conversation because it's positionless basketball. But it was that. And now I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Stop. He's better than Donovan Mitchell. The only guy that I think is better is Anthony Edwards right now. And I think TBD on that because the Wolves could fall off a cliff, I think, this year too. But I'll let you close this one out, man.
Yeah, I think Devin Booker still could crack that top 8 because we're going to see. This is going to be his team. This is going to be the first time in his prime that there is no doubt that he is number 1. There is no argument that he's 1B anymore. There's no, there's no Kevin Durant. There's no, Chris Paul. There's no other guy that you're going to argue is the top guy on this roster. It's Devin Booker's show, and it is for the foreseeable future. So to me, if he elevates and is in a scoring title conversation, has double-digit assists, or whatever the case may be, surprises in the way that he helps lift up his teammates, I think he can re-achieve being in that top 8 to 10 range, being on in the conversation of is Devin Booker one of the top stars in the league from that. Do I think he will? I genuinely have no idea. And I know that's not what we like to do on these shows. We like to act in indefinites, but to me, I think it's a possibility, but I think there's just as much of a possibility that doesn't happen, that he still continues to have really good stats, but winds up in that 15 to 20 range for the next 4 or 5 years in his prime. And that's where he peaks out. And that's fine. Like nobody expected Devin Booker to be more than than a Walmart Klay Thompson when he came into this league. Like, that was the ceiling. This guy has done more than anybody ever expected. So, like, if he's not top 6, top 8 in the league, but he's top 15, all right. Like, he's still an impact player, and that's what the Suns need him to be.
Greg Esposito, everyone. GM over at PHNX Sports, host of Southwest Bias, an incredibly busy person, but taking time out of his day to join the Locked On Phoenix Suns family for just 30 minutes. And then we'll kick him back to the mean streets of PHNX Sports where he belongs. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Phoenix Suns. For myself, my guy, Greg Esposito, thank you so much for joining us. And for everyone else in the chat, don't forget to check us out on all social media platforms. My guy at Espo, and also on all social media platforms, if I'm not mistaken. Myself at Ben Garcia Show everywhere. For Espo, myself, Benjamin Garcia, and everyone watching in the chat, I will talk to you guys on Monday.